Welcome back to Wages and Employment at Wilfrid Laurier University. Today we're going to look at household production as part of the set of decisions we make about work over the life cycle. For reference, you should pair this video with readings in Chapter 4 of your textbook. When we think about labor supply, we like working with our most basic model, but recall that our use of the term leisure here was a bit of a misnomer. What we really represent here is the time people spend in non-market activities, and some of that time might be used working in the home quite productively. So now, instead of just one individual, we're thinking about households who have preferences over a variety of goods and services, like the food they eat for dinner. Those meals will require some market goods, like vegetables or rice, as well as some of the household members' time to actually prepare dinner. And it's in this context that we stop thinking about non-market time as pure leisure. It's also an input into production of goods and services that household and others. In this model, the household has to think about allocating its time to both paid market work and household production. Consider a simpler example where the household really enjoys nutrition and rest. When working, they can earn the wage W, so that is their price of leisure. If they buy the ingredients to make their dinner, they have to pay for that, plus use some of their time to prepare dinner, which has its opportunity cost. Alternatively, they could get takeout or pre-cooked food and save themselves some time. So what happens when price changes in this model? Suppose we reduce the price of takeout, the pre-cooked food. This is really the same as increasing the relative price of the time-intensive good, which is the home-cooked meal you take time to prepare. There will clearly be a substitution effect where people increase the amount of takeout they buy and reduce their home-cooked meals. But there's also an income effect where people will enjoy more of all goods entering their utility function. Overall, the effect on home production time is ambiguous. If we reduce the price of ingredients, the raw food, we will see substitution effects pushing us to spend more time in home production to prepare home-cooked meals. The income effect further drives this increase in home production, so that overall, a reduction in the price of ingredients will drive an increase in home production time. The more interesting point is made when we consider raising the wage rate. Here, we see the importance of clearly stating that time in home production has an opportunity cost. The time we spend making meals is time that could have been spent in the paid market. So the increase in the wage rate has two effects: an income effect, whereby a household is richer and can purchase more of all goods, but also a substitution effect, where the household will take more time in the paid labor market and use more pre-cooked meals while spending less time in household production. We can also consider technology that reduces the time required to prepare meals, D. This reduces the price of home-cooked meals, which could result in greater consumption of home-cooked meals, but it also frees up time for paid work in the labor market. This type of model has often been used to think about the labor supply of women, because women have traditionally been more involved in home production activities than men. In this model, we can think about how a change in the wage rate for women affects not only their own allocation decisions, but also the decisions of other family members, either in terms of their own paid market activity or in terms of the time-intensive services enjoyed in a household. As we've seen household technology and wages change over time, such a model might help us understand broad trends in women's labor market outcomes. We can also think about planning over our lifetimes in terms of when we might want to spend more time in time-intensive activities, particularly when those opportunity costs are low. And while the model can be a useful framework, it's important to recognize an important limitation. It doesn't tell us about how households decide to allocate time or goods within the household. This may in part be determined by comparative advantage, who has an advantage in household or market work, but it's also determined by negotiating power and social norms, both of which are not easily captured in such a simple framework. In our next video, we will talk about how we make decisions about labor supply toward the end of our life cycle and how the availability and design of pensions will influence that decision. See you then.